Gladys has worked for over 20 years at this soup kitchen in the neighborhood of Mataderos, a poor Buenos Aires suburb beset by the economic crisis ravaging Argentina. Today's lunch menu: ravioli and tomato sauce, a piece of bread and an apple.
Some neighbors are unemployed, have many children and have nothing to eat. Mothers come to look for food for 6, 7, 8 people in their families.
Argentina's statistics agency published an annual inflation of 276% on Tuesday, as February's inflation decreased to 13.2% from 20.6% a month earlier. A slight improvement, but food is still getting more expensive every month. Volunteers assure they used to be able to prepare up to 300 meals per day. Because of subsidy cuts and fewer donations, now they can only feed 150 people on weekdays. They know every effort counts.
People must choose between paying rent and eating, which are essential. They are not a luxury.
Beatriz receives a pension of $130 a month, half of which she spends on medicine. The rest is to provide for her daughter and 2 grandchildren.
There are 2 boys, one is 7 and the other 4 who must be fed. This helps us a lot. If we lacked this, it would be terrible for us.
And the story repeats itself as the queue moves in.
Since I lost my job, I haven't had money to buy food, and they fed me here. It's our meal of the day, which I can assure my family.
It is not only that there is not enough money. We have started to notice that in some segments, due to layoffs, there is already no money at all.
Night has fallen in Buenos Aires. Office workers have left the city center, and some families and homeless gather religiously to receive a last bite. It seems like these are becoming more and more common here in Argentina. Volunteers from NGOs providing food for those in need in parks like this. This is the main square in Buenos Aires, which is just across the street from La Casa Rosada, the government palace. Meanwhile, President Javier Milei's economic plan at the Pink House includes slashing the size of the government, trimming back subsidies for fuel and transport, shutting state institutions, and auditing welfare schemes. But everyday Argentinians may no longer have the patience to wait. James Katika Matheson, TRT World, Buenos Aires.
For more on this, Javier Farje, a Latin America analyst, joins us live from London. Thank you for being with us this morning. Argentina is Latin America's 3rd largest economy, yet it's currently struggling, we've just heard, to cope with the world's fastest rising prices. First of all, what can be done, what should be done right now in the country?
Well, as your reporter rightly and your introduction rightly explained, there's been a reduction in the inflation for February compared to December. However, Argentina still has the fastest growing monthly inflation in the world. Not the highest inflation in the world, the fastest growing inflation in the world. This 13.2%, if you put together to the last month, is 36%, and as your reporter said, 276%. Now, what the government is trying to do is something which many economists consider as an artificial way to lower the inflation. First of all, the government has been trying to negotiate with supermarkets to keep a stability in prices, which is ironic according to some economists, because for a government that claims to be a champion of the freedom of the market, to negotiate with supermarkets prices is something which goes against the grain. Second, it's been trying also to keep the state-owned oil company, the energy prices low, in order to keep inflation down. And also, it has frozen bus fares, transport fares. Many of the transport systems in Argentina are state-owned. The contradiction with this is that while the government tries to freeze transport fees in order to keep inflation low, it has cut the subsidy for these companies to about 56%. So they're trying to control inflation. It is true that inflation has gone down, but as your reporter said, again, rightly so in Argentina, the levels of poverty have remained, have actually gone up. For example, they have something called the poverty basket, which is the way they measure how poor people cannot afford. And this non-affordability of food has gone up by 15% in February and accumulated in 2 months, 39%. So the measures that the government have been trying to take have not worked as much as the president wanted. Now, the government, the central bank, which the government at some point, or Milei at some point wanted to abolish, which he hasn't done that, has just approved the use of dollars to import produce, especially food and all that, and a fixed dollar price. They want to use the dollar as a currency to import, but at a fixed rate, so prices do not go up. Those are the measures they are taking, but so far this could be dangerous because if they fix the dollar, as it happened in Venezuela, for example, that might create a black market, which might become the real measure of inflation in Argentina. So it has worked, but to a certain extent, but the levels of poverty are still high, and inflation doesn't, some economists predict that inflation will go up again in March.